Hi guys, did you miss me? I missed you. I am so sorry for the brief hiatus. I was a little busy getting married and going on my dream honeymoon, but I am back and I am going to film a few tutorials for you. I hope you find them helpful. And again, message me anything that you want to know. I have been getting a lot of messages about blocking lately, so I'm going to show you how to do that. And fingers crossed, you don't have any questions, but if you do, definitely reach out. I love hearing from you guys, and I love knowing that you find this helpful because I do spend a lot of time making these videos, and it sometimes is a little bit sad to put all that effort in and then like you don't even know if anyone's watched it. So let me know if you find it helpful and if there's anything specifically that you want help. Okay, so let me gather supplies and then we can go forth. Okay, so for blocking, this is kind of what we're gonna be working with. I have my rulers, I have my corner measuring thing. I have some blocking combs, which I'll put them in the link underneath. So if there's anything you want, I've made an Amazon list with all of my favorites. One-stop shop, order whatever you need. And then we're gonna use some blocking boards. Typically I'll just use one, but I'm not going to lie, these blocking combs are quite long. And so if I just use one, it goes through the board, and I am sitting at an antique table and I will be evicted if I scratch this table. So I am going to use two blocks kind of on top of each other, but one is fine, especially if you're working like on carpet or something like that. And then your stitched piece, and optional, a steamer. So why is the steamer optional? A lot of threads are not like color fast. And so anything that's over dyed or anything that says dry block only, you don't really want to get them wet, because what can happen is that the colors can start to seep out. And so if you've got like, you know, a lot of white right here, and then you have like a red thread going behind, that red can seep into the white and turn it pink. And so anything that says dry block only, I would not get it wet, and I would only lightly, very, very lightly steam it as a last resort. Honestly, for anything dry block only, the best thing to do is just give it time and to repeat the process over and over. And so typically what you'll do is you'll let it block overnight or a few nights, repeat the process, make small adjustments, repeat the process. So this one, it may be dry block only, I can't remember, but it's something small and it's my own personal one, so I'm willing to risk it. I am gonna use a little bit of steam just so you guys can see what that looks like. But again, be very careful getting your pieces wet or damp if you don't know kind of what threads you're using. Okay, so I'm turning on my steamer and it's already hot. So we're just gonna give this a very light steam, and I hope I don't burn myself. Okay, so I steamed it lightly. It's not like wet, it's not even damp, but I can definitely tell that it's been steamed. So what I'm gonna do then is just kind of block it by hand and stretch it out in places where it's obviously warped. And honestly, sometimes with my hands, I like overstretch it just to get it loose and ready to go. And one thing you can do too after you steam it is just let it sit for like, I don't know, a few minutes, just to really kind of loosen up as you go along. But again, be very, very careful with what you steam and how much you steam it and how like damp you let it get, just because the threads that are not color fast will very quickly seep out. And like, there's nothing worse than getting your piece all set after you've stitched it, only to find that it is now a piece of tie-dye or like mush and all the colors have bled together. One of my friends sent something out for finishing, and I don't know kind of what they did for blocking, but it came back and the colors had kind of seeped together, and it was just very sad and upsetting, because you know, when you work that hard, you want a beautiful piece back, and so to get anything less than that, is incredibly heartbreaking. So again, be very cautious with how much liquid you use. Okay, so my piece now is at the point where I think I am not really able to block it by hand too much more, so we're gonna move over to this board. I'm gonna change the camera angle so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. While I know you love looking at my face, I think this will be a lot more practical for you guys, so give me just a second. Okay, so now we have our finished piece. It's been lightly steamed. I hand blocked it. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm re-steaming it because it took me like 20 minutes to go from the in-person to the above shot. So give me just like 2 seconds. Okay, so again, just gonna kind of warp it by hand. And then what I typically do, so you see how these boards have these lines? I'll use those as guidelines to ensure my piece is straight. So what I'll do is I'll find like 2 rows, and then I'll make sure that the guideline stays between them. And I usually start on the top corner. So then now I'm just gonna grab my blocking comb, and for this first one, go all the way through, and I'm making sure that the line between those 2 pieces is staying between this green. So then now what I'm gonna do is just keep going all the way across the top, repeating the process. And I'm gonna kind of pull it and tug it as needed to ensure that it stays nice and straight. And I wanna make sure that this row kind of stays there. Okay. And then for over here, I wanna keep kind of the same row all the way down as well. And just make sure you're kind of pulling and tugging and making sure that it's straight as you go. I typically will kind of put my combs a bit at an angle, just so that way it can kind of stay there too. Because when you do it up and down, like up here, it's just not as like strong as if you're keeping it at an angle like that. Okay. And then what we'll do is just continue to follow this method all the way around. And where it's going to get tricky, and I'm going to take this one out, is the last side. So I'm going to decide right now where I want it. I think this row is what I'm going to have show for the green. Okay. So I'm going to go on this big side over here, pull it to where that green that I wanted between the 2 rows is there, and also kind of pull it down at the same time. Okay. Okay. So in theory, if I did it correctly, the top row should be like a nice 90-degree angle. It's a little bit harder for pieces that aren't like square, but what you can do is look at the shape and see if it's like the general shape that you want. Okay, so I'm actually going to move these out because I cannot measure. I'm going to leave that one in there for now and then just kind of put a second one behind it and then take these out. Okay, so if I put this down, I can see that at least, well, let's see. Yeah, so for that top corner, it's like pretty close. It's not perfect, but that's okay because for me, blocking is like a very long process and typically I'll adjust it and move it around a few times. So each time you leave it, it kind of moves a little bit more into place. And so you can reset it, readjust it, and just make like minute changes over time. It's very time consuming, but it's also one of those things where you can set it, leave it, and then you're good to go. Okay. And this corner also looks pretty good. It could come out just a little bit as well. And then the main one I'm going to do is this bottom one. So I'm going to pull it down, make sure it is between, that green line is between the same row all the way across. Okay, and so there we go. That should be all that I need. It looks pretty straight right now, honestly, but what I'll do is I'll leave it overnight, check it in a couple days, and if it needs more, I'll just make some more minute adjustments. I'm so sorry that my hands keep being in the screen. So that's all there is to it. These blocking boards, I'll have them on my list below if you guys want to check them out, but essentially they interconnect so you can make like a really big piece if you have kind of a big thing that you need to block. For pillows, whatnot, those take a lot more time because they are very big, so there is that thread tension. Just remember to be patient, slow and steady, set it, forget it, reevaluate it a few days later. But as long as you are paying attention and willing to put in the time or effort, you can block it at home. And again, be very, very cautious with how much steam or mist you use on your piece. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I wish you guys the best of luck.